الله أكبر الله أكبر
الله
أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله
أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله
حي على الصلاة
لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله
حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر
الله أكبر
لا إله إلا الله
لا إله إلا الله صلى الله
الحمد لله ثم الحمد لله. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونستنصره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له إلها واحدا أحدا صمدا لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. وأشهد أن نبينا وعظيمنا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وحبيبه. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، وبعد. يقول جل جلاله في محكم كتابه: ما عندكم ينفد وما عند الله باق. He says subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Nahl, what you have will run out, and what is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will stay forever, or is infinite. This is the 10th installment within the series of khutbahs that I began a number of weeks ago, where I state a very clear and undebated or undisputed Islamic value or concept. And then I show you a caveat that with it you require a certain balance to understand it appropriately and properly. And I think this is where we have some problems as Muslims in the Muslim world in general, where in order for us to understand certain Islamic ideas, we have to see that there are two sides to the coin, or two sides to the story. And without that, you can end up miscomprehending what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is explaining. And I've done 9 of these khutbahs, this is the 10th. And today it should be straightforward, but I think it's still worth at least talking about. Definitely within Islam, the concept of asceticism or zuhd is very much important. It's very important. It's actually one of the most obvious characteristics of the Prophet ﷺ if you are to watch him from afar. If you take a step back and just watch the Prophet ﷺ from a little bit from afar, this is what you'll see about him ﷺ. If you didn't understand much about the deen, if you didn't understand really a lot about rituals, or you weren't fully adversed within Islamic law, what will stand out about the way he lived ﷺ is that he chose to live in a very simple manner. He just chose to live simplistically. And when you read the Quran, you'll find the Quran pushing that concept a lot. For example, the verse I just recited, he says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَفَرِحُوا بِالْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا فِي الْآخِرَةِ إِلَّا مَتَاعٌ. And they're all happy and excited about dunya and this life, this worldly life. But really, what is dunya within akhirah except a few moments of joy? Mata', something that you enjoyed for a very short period of time. He says subhanahu wa ta'ala, قُلْ مَتَاعُ الدُّنْيَا قَلِيلٌ وَالْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لِمَنِ اتَّقَى وَلَا تُظْلَمُونَ فَتِيلًا. Say the joy of this world is very, very simple. It's qaleel, it's almost nothing. But al-akhirah is way better for those who show some degree of piety. And you will not be mistreated. You will not be treated with injustice on that day. He says subhanahu wa ta'ala twice in the Quran to the Prophet ﷺ and in transformation to us, وَلَا تَمُدَّنَّ عَيْنَيْكَ إِلَى مَا مَتَّعْنَا بِهِ أَزْوَاجًا مِّنْهُمْ زَهْرَةَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. Twice he said this in the Quran to the Prophet. And don't extend your eyesight to what we have given other people, other couples, from this dunya that they are enjoying. Don't look at it. Don't be preoccupied by it. Don't care what others have that you don't. Be content with what you've got, is what he's being told ﷺ in these verses. وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَمَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيا وَزِينَتُهَا وَمَا عِندَ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى. And whatever you're given within this dunya is just whatever wealth you are given, or whatever possessions that you have, is just a little bit of the mata' of the dunya. Just a little bit of a provision of this dunya. It will end quickly. But what you have waiting on the other side is way better. Those who know Surah Al-Duha. وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. Twice in the surah, it's very short, and it says basically the same idea. The akhirah is going to be way better than the dunya. And you'll be given there until you're satisfied, so don't waste too much time. Aisha radiallahu anha, in a series of ahadith in the Sahihain, in a series of ahadith, different ones, she would talk about him alayhi salatu wasalam and her life with him, and she would say, مَا شَبِعَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ مِنْ خُبْزٍ وَزَيْتٍ فِي يَوْمٍ مَرَّتَيْن. He never ate in one day something that had bread and oil in it twice. قال كنا آل محمد لنمكث الشهر وما نستوقد بالبيت من نار. We would spend a full month and never would a fire be kindled in our house. ما هو إلا التمر والماء. It's dates and water. Ibn Mas'ud would tell us the hadith in Sahihain as well. قال كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم مستلقيا على بساط من leaf. فلما قام أثر الحصير في جنبه. He was lying on a rug. It's made of hasir, which is a very thick type of fabric. And when he got up, alayhi salatu wasalam, you could see the pattern of the fabric on his body. And Ibn Mas'ud saw it and it bothered him. فقال يا رسول الله لو اتخذنا لك وطاء. Why don't we get you something a little bit more comfortable than this? فقال ما لي وللدنيا وما للدنيا وما لي إنما أنا رجل استظل تحت شجرة ثم راح وتركها. What do I want from dunya? What does dunya want from me? I'm just here. I'm just an example of me in dunya. Just a man who's on a trip. He waits under a tree for the shade for a little bit, and then he keeps on going. If you study what the Prophet ﷺ did with the Sahaba, like the Sahaba, you find at least maybe 8 ahadith within the authentic collections where they talk about what they agreed to with the Prophet ﷺ. They would perform a bay'ah. They would go and they would agree, they would shake his hand on something. And within that, there would be a number of different things, like about salah and siyam and zakah and hajj and jihad and all that stuff. But they always would point out one of the things that he talked about, alayhi salatu wasalam. And why we know this is because they later on regretted it. I mean, they would talk about this later in their lives and say, that one piece that we agreed to, we didn't really do that one very well. That's why they would point it out. So we don't know what each and every person shook the hand of the Prophet ﷺ agreed to, but we know that they agreed to this because they kept on talking about it after he passed away. And what it was, بايعنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أو بايعنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم على مثل زاد الراكب. Zad, this phrase is repeated like 8-9 times in the books of hadith by different Sahaba. Zad al-Rakib is the provision of a traveler. A provision of a traveler. If you're going somewhere and coming back, how much do you take? How much do you pack? If you're not insane, you'll take maybe a small lunchbox. That's it. You're not going to take your house with you. If you're traveling to a city and come back, some people try and do that. It's impossible. You take something very simple. So Zadul Rakib is the provision of a traveler. So they use this phrase as what they agreed to with the Prophet ﷺ, that we're going to take from dunya only the provision of a traveler. Just as much to get us to our destination, that's it. And they would go and say, oh, we didn't do that one. We were supposed to. And then you look at their lives, of course, and you're like, what are you talking about? Because they didn't really own anything. Like when you actually analyze their lives and their possessions and their wealth, they didn't really have much of it, but they still felt that they did not come through with that one specific agreement they had with the Prophet ﷺ. And the examples here, I can go on and on and on and on, of examples of how the Prophet ﷺ's lifestyle was extremely, extremely simple. And he did not take from this dunya. When he passed away, ﷺ, he had put his own shield as collateral with his neighbor because he took out a loan to help someone else. ﷺ. When they came to look at his inheritance, there was almost nothing left. Like there was nothing. He didn't leave anything, ﷺ. All they left, obviously, is everything. He didn't leave anything in terms of wealth, but he left everything, ﷺ, as his inheritance, and he made sure that it was available for everyone, so there was no need to divide it amongst the people that were there. But from dunya, there was nothing to divide after he passed away, ﷺ. And that's how he lived. إخواني وأخواتي، هذه الخطبة العاشرة من ضمن سلسلة الخطب التي ابتدأتها منذ عدة أسابيع، والحديث فيها عن تحقيق التوازن في القضايا الإسلامية. تحقيق التوازن هذا هو ما يجعلنا أمة وسطا كما وصفنا سبحانه وتعالى. وتحقيق التوازن هذا يحتاج إلى حسن فهم، إلى استيعاب المسائل الشرعية والدينية استيعابا صحيحا، أن يدرك الإنسان مراد الله سبحانه وتعالى من أوامره ومن أحكامه. وقد تحدثت عن مواضيع متعددة يعني مختلفة شتى، في كل موضوع في اتجاه مختلف عن الآخر. لكن الموضوع اليوم هو موضوع الزهد، هذا المبدأ الإسلامي العظيم، هذا الذي لو نظرت إلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من بعيد لما رأيت في صفاته الشريفة عليه الصلاة والسلام ما هو أوضح منها. لما رأيت من صفاته عليه الصلاة والسلام ما هو أبدى وأبين من زهده عليه الصلاة والسلام. حياته كانت بسيطة، وتجد القرآن مليئا بهذا الحديث. القرآن ممتلئ بترك الدنيا ونبذها وعدم اتباعها وعدم الرغبة فيها، وبقلة المتاع الذي تجده فيها، وبقلة الزينة التي فيها، وبيعني عدمية السعادة الموجودة فيها، إلى ما هنالك من هذا الكلام، أنها لا تستحق منك هذا الجري الذي تجريه، لأنها ليست ذات قيمة، وإنما القيمة فيما عند الله يوم القيامة. فهذا كلام مكرر في كتاب الله، ونجد هذا عند الصحابة الكرام كلهم بايعوا النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم على مثل زاد الراكب. هكذا هذا اللفظ الذي نجده في الأحاديث، يعني لفظ عجيب هذا، ما تأخذ من الدنيا إلا ما تحتاجه لتصل إلى الآخرة فقط، غير ذلك ما تأخذ معك أي شيء. هذا كلمة جابر وأبي ذر وابن مسعود ويعني وعمر وغيرهم، كلهم قالوا هذه، بايعوا النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم على هذه المسألة. فقضية الزهد قضية واضحة في الدين لا يشكك فيها اثنان. النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام كان عاش زاهدا ومات زاهدا، وكذلك من كان معه من الصحابة الكرام. So that's the first part of the khutbah. That's a definitely piece. I don't think we have to disagree on that, because we know that the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba, that's how they lived. All you have to do is go read the endless number of ahadith that talk about the simplistic aspect of his lifestyle, and how he was told to do that from the Quran, and how he asked the Sahaba whom he loved, were very close to him, to do the same. However, there is a second piece of this. See, zuhud and poverty are not the same. Asceticism and being poor, they're not the same. They're not equal or equivalent in any form or manner. And actually equalizing them is the problem that we have as Muslims today, when we think somehow that being poor and not having enough, not making ends meet, and not having any strength, financial, social, or otherwise, is equal to being zahid. And they are not. The Prophet ﷺ, and I'm going to make this statement very clear, he was not poor. ﷺ, financially, he was not poor. He was never poor, alayhi salatu wasalam. From after the age of 15, he was never poor because he worked. He started working when he was 8 years old. He started being a businessman when he was 15. He always had money. He always made enough and more than enough, alayhi salatu wasalam. His lifestyle was by choice. He was not coerced into it. It wasn't, this is the only option because I have nothing. No. He chose to live like that. This is a huge difference. This is a huge difference between someone who can't make ends meet, or someone who's accepted poverty, or someone who has no ambition, versus someone who just chose to live like that for a reason. So this has to be, we have to unpack this a little bit, because it's very important. Because the Prophet ﷺ did not encourage poverty, nor did the Quran. Neither of them encouraged Muslims to be poor, or by transformation, weak. You're not encouraged to do that. If anything, you're encouraged to be the opposite. You're encouraged to have wealth and to be strong. And then the question just becomes, what are you going to do with all of it? That's where this all comes down to. Why do you have it? What is the goal? Look, الشيطان in the Quran, الشيطان يعدكم الفقر ويأمركم بالفحشاء والله يعدكم مغفرة منه وفضلا. The shaitan is the one who is wanting you to be poor, to have faqr, to have nothing, and to perform fahsha. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is promising you the opposite. 3 times in the Quran, وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَلَا تَهِنُوا فِي ابْتِغَاءِ الْقَوْمِ فَلَا تَهِنُوا وَتَدْعُوا إِلَى السَّلْمِ. لَا تَهِنُوا, don't be weak. Do not be weak. 3 times you find it in different contexts in the Quran, in different verses, in different surahs. وَلَا تَهِنُوا, do not be weak. In Surah وَأَعِدُّوا لَهُمْ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن قُوَّةٍ. And prepare yourself with all the power that you can possibly prepare. If you have no power, and if you have nothing, then what is there to prepare? He says, عليه الصلاة والسلام, hadith في الصحيحين عن حكيم بن حزام, the known hadith, he will say, اليد العليا خير من السفلى. اليد العليا خير من السفلى. وابدأ بمن تعول وخير الصدقة ما كان عن ظهر غنى. The upper hand is better than the lower hand. He's giving you that simile where someone's giving and someone's receiving. The upper hand is always better. The hand that is giving is always better than the hand that is out receiving. Always. And start by giving and start by strengthening those whom you're responsible for financially. And the best sadaqah is the sadaqah that's coming from someone who has wealth. Who has extra, who has more. That's the best type of sadaqah. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه يغفر لكم يا فوز المستغفرين استغفر الله. الحمد لله وحده وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اتبع نهجه ووفى عهده. In the hadith of Imam Muslim, he says عليه الصلاة والسلام, this is a very famous one, it's a good one for us to kind of use and anchor and remind ourselves of. المؤمن القوي خير وأحب إلى الله من المؤمن الضعيف وفي كل خير. He says عليه الصلاة والسلام, he says the strong mu'min is more beloved and more beneficial and more significant to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the weak one. Both have khair in them. But the one that is stronger is better. Because if you have strength, whatever that strength exists in, academic strength or social strength or financial strength or political strength or whatever type of strength or even physical strength, that is what the deen is actually encouraging you to do. It's just saying that once you have it, you use it for the benefit of others. The concept of zuhud or asceticism is to live simplistically, even though you have a lot. You look at the Prophet ﷺ, he always had wealth. It's just whenever he received it, he gave it away. It didn't stay in his house for more. It didn't sleep in his home. He got the money, he gave it away. Now what he did ﷺ is, in my opinion, almost impossible for a human being to do. Because it borderlines what is impossible for a human being to be able to do, which is why I think we should be at awe of his character, alayhi salatu wasalam. It's just not possible to do what he did. It's not possible for all of his life, from the age of 15 to the age of 63, No matter how much money he makes, no matter how much money he brings, he gives it all away. At some point he has to cash in. At some point he has to say, okay, now it's my time. It's my time to enjoy. He never did. He never did, because at some point people feel that way. I'm giving, but now it's my time. He never said that. That my time piece, he never brought up. He never thought of, he never felt, because he found joy in living that way. He found joy in being someone who lived a simple lifestyle and gave what he had for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the point where his wives couldn't put up with it anymore. Like, it bothered them because you're married to someone and there's no financial progression at all. There's no hope even, because every time he makes a little bit of money, he doesn't bring any of it home. He gives it away on the way home, and he comes back with maybe a piece of meat. He had like 16 or 600 sheep. He gives it all away, comes back with a piece of meat, maybe not even that. So they objected, and the Quran came and said, either you stay with him the way he is, or we will designate you and treat you in high manner, and you'll be divorced, and you can live, and you'll have all the wealth and the respect that you want. We're not going to mistreat you if you end up not being his wives, but if you're going to live with him, that's how he lives. You look at Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr was poor? No. What was his lifestyle like? Sometimes he'd walk out of his house wearing 2 pieces of clothing that would make people laugh. Sometimes he'd walk out with clothing so simple that people would smirk, because he would have nothing left. He would give away so much there would be nothing left inside his wardrobe to wear. So he'd walk out, tomorrow I'll buy something to wear. Umar poor? No. Abdurrahman ibn Auf? No. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas? No. All the big names. Uthman? Not even. Uthman was one of the richest people that lived. But when you looked at how they lived their lives, they lived it simplistically, because zuhud was a choice. Not allowing dunya to overtake the heart was a choice that they made. I'm not going to live in an extravagant manner, and the wealth that I have is designated to serve Allah and to serve His ummah. It's hard to do. So why am I saying this? Because neither extremes in this, and what I'm trying to explain, are Islamic and acceptable or proper. Neither extremes. Let me just translate for a moment. فالجزء الثاني من خطبة اليوم إخواني وأخواتي أن نعم النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام كان زاهدا، وكان كل من معه في المدينة ممن تبعه من الزهاد، فكانوا لا يأخذون من الدنيا إلا القليل، وكانوا يستقلون من الدنيا، هكذا عاشوا. لكن هذا لا يعني أن المسلم يكون ضعيفا أو يكون فقيرا، لا أبدا. الإسلام لا يأمر بالفقر ولا يأمر بالضعف، لا أبدا، يأمر بالقوة وبالمال وبالمنعة. ولكن هذا المال وهذه القوة وهذه المنعة وهذا الجاه الذي حصلته، ماذا تفعل به؟ ماذا تصنع به؟ مردوده عليك أنت فقط، أم مردوده على الأمة؟ تأخذ من هذه الدنيا فتبخي في جعبتك، أم تأخذ من الدنيا فتنفح عن يمينك هكذا وعن شمالك هكذا، كما أمر صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال إن المكثرين هم المقلون يوم القيامة، إلا من نفح عن يمينه هكذا وهكذا ومن أمامه ومن خلفه، فأعطى مما أعطاه الله سبحانه وتعالى. يصعب علينا أن نتأسى به في هذه المسألة عليه الصلاة والسلام تأسيا كاملا صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم، فعل ما أرى أنه تقريبا يستحيل على الإنسان فعله، لكن على الأقل أن نستوعب المسألة استيعابا صحيحا حتى نقلده ما استطعنا إلى ذلك سبيلا. So here's what I want to explain. Here's the balance. I think we have to make sure that our Muslim youth, male and female, understand that they are commanded by Allah to be strong, to be powerful, to be wealthy, to be successful, to take the dunya within their hands. If you leave the dunya, who are you leaving it to? Who is going to control it if you decide that you don't want it? Who is going to take it? When was the last time you saw rich people give their wealth away? There are those who tell you that you don't need to, money doesn't buy this and money doesn't buy that. Money buys a lot of things. It buys almost everything. It can buy consciences. It can buy countries. It can buy treaties. It can buy almost anything you want. Money is there. That's why no one gives away their money. No one gives away their money. They'll talk about it and they'll say, no, it's not important. It's important. Money is very important. Without money, there would have been no Islam. Without the Prophet ﷺ putting out his aba'ah and telling him, put your wealth so we can build an army and build a country, there would be no Islam. Wealth is important. The only thing that he's trying to explain in the Quran and in the Sunnah is that wealth is not for your personal consumption only. Don't live in an extravagant manner with the wealth. Actually, that wealth has to be, the intention of having it, the intention of going and seeking it and getting it is to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to serve others and to help others, remove people from poverty, remove people from struggle and strengthen the ummah. That is what wealth is for. That is the point of it. So yes, you need to go and make money and you need to be successful, and we need entrepreneurs and we need business owners and we need people who have strength on every front, whether that be academic or financial or social or political, so that they can use it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what zuhud means. Zuhud means you have the wealth in your hand. It's not in your heart. You own it. It doesn't own you. You own it. It doesn't own you. The car that you drive, it doesn't own you. You own it. So you can get rid of it anytime you want. It's not a piece of you that you will suffer and cry and be in pain when you don't have it anymore. If there's something in your life like that, you don't own it. It owns you. There's a big difference between the two concepts. And zuhud is saying nothing owns you. Dunya, you take from it only what you need to get through it, and maybe a little bit more for your person. But you keep the balance clear. Nowhere in Islam are we told to be weak. I am standing here to tell you that you need to teach your children to be as strong as they possibly can in every field that they can access. In every discipline, in every field of life, to be as strong as possible, to be as wealthy as possible, and then take that, and then use it the way the Prophet ﷺ did. Remember when he came running down the mountain, and Khadija took him, he embraced him, and he told her, I'm afraid that maybe I was being punished for something I did wrong. So she told him, and this is in Sahih, it's a beautiful phrase. She said, "Kalla wallahi la yukhzika Allahu abada." So no, you would never be mistreated by God. God would never punish you. And then she started to count for him why. إنك لتكسب المعدوم وتعين ذا الحاجة يعني وتعين على نوائب الحق وتعين على نوائب الحق وتغيث الملهوف وتحمل الكل. These four concepts that she used. You strengthen the person who is weak, you give wealth to the person who doesn't have it, you teach the person who doesn't know how to make money how to make it, and you carry the person who can't carry themselves. It was never about that he didn't have money. It's about that the money that he made, he would use. He would use for the benefit of others, because he didn't see that he needed, even before prophecy, he didn't see that he needed a lot of dunya for himself. He didn't want to be a slave for dunya. He wanted to be a servant of something that Allah created for it to serve him. He didn't want to be a servant of it. He didn't want to be owned by his own possessions. He didn't want to allow them to find their way inside his heart, where he wanted them more than he should, where he is captive by something that he bought with his own money. He didn't want that, alayhi salam, so he kept his distance. He used from dunya what he needed, and the rest of it he helped others with it. And this is what we're supposed to do. This is the balance. Zuhud is a beautiful concept. I don't think we can do it the way he did it, alayhi salatu wasalam. Alayhi salatu, way beyond, just light years beyond us in terms of how he was able to live. I think you're going to definitely need to have a nice car and a nice house and good clothing and all that stuff and travel here and there. But you have to remind yourself that Islam teaches you that the wealth that you have, the strength that you have, that you are commanded to go and obtain. You're not welcome to be weak as a Muslim. You're not allowed to do that. You have to go get strength somewhere, in some discipline, in some field. Go become strong somewhere, and then use that strength to serve. Use it to serve. That is what Islam is teaching us, and that's why zuhud and poverty are not equal. Never have been and never will be. And today we need to understand that. I see the pendulum swinging from both extremes in my community. I see those who have left dunya, and they can barely have ends meet, and they can barely make a living for themselves, somehow feeling that this is how they should be living. And I feel bad to tell them, no, this is not how you're supposed to be living, and this is wrong. Don't come here for 5 prayers a day if you don't have go find a job and go make a living, and come here for Isha only, and that's better. That's way better, because weakness is not going to help you, it's not going to help the ummah, it's not going to help your children. And then you have the opposite. Those who don't have time. Because dunya has completely consumed them. They have been consumed by, they think they're consuming it. They've been consumed by dunya, so they have no time. Barely make it for Jummah. Barely come for anything. Barely be a part of the ummah altogether. Both examples are poor examples of Muslims. Both are poor examples of Muslims. Because that's not how he was, alayhi salatu wasalam, nor were the Sahaba like that. I'll end with this story. Once, Umar ibn Khattab walks into the masjid during his khilafah. It's a time where people are working, at work. So he sees a guy sitting reading the Quran. So he comes up and he asks him, "What are you doing?" He said, I'm reading the Quran and doing my dhikr. Do you not work? He said, no, my brother works for both of us. فَقَالَ أَخُوكَ أَعْبَدْ مِنْكَ. Your brother is more of a servant of God than you are. And he walks out. And he was right. Because he understands how this works. رضي الله عنه وارضاه. He learned from the Prophet ﷺ, you're not welcome to be weak and not to have any form of strength. No. Go and become strong. Because that strength is what's going to strengthen the ummah. And then if you use it, you get more ajr that way. You get more ajr. You get way more reward when you have some strength in your hand and you use it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's someone who doesn't. Once Aisha saw people walking, and they were walking very like this. So she sees them and she says, "What? Ma hada? Why are you all ill? You have all COVID? What's going on?" So they say, هؤلاء نساك زهاد. There are people who are, left dunya نساك. فقالوا والله ما عرفنا الزهد هكذا. We don't know zuhd to be like that. والله ما أنتم بأتقى من عمر. And you're not more pious than Umar ibn Khattab. وكان إذا مشى أسرع وإذا تكلم أسمع وإذا ضرب أوجع. If he spoke, you could hear him. When he walked with his head high. In another narration, Umar would say, لا تتماوتوا فتميتوا علينا ديننا. Don't walk as if you're dying and you make Islam seem as if people who accept it are half dead. It's a deen of dying. No, walk with your head held high and walk with strength that you have obtained in your life for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the difference. You obtain wealth, why? So that you can just enjoy it yourself or so that you can serve others with it. This is the question that I've repeated in the Khotbah Sunnah 4 times because this is the question that you have to answer. This is what this is all about. This is why I gave this khutbah. Because zuhd is known and strength are known, but we need to bring them together in a way that is meaningful, and we'll end with that inshallah ta'ala. I hope that was a benefit to you. واعلموا أن الله أمرنا بأمر عظيم فقال إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد وارض اللهم عن الأربعة الخلفاء السادة الحنفاء أبي بكر وعمر وعثمان وعلي وارض اللهم عن زوجاته أمهات المؤمنين وعن آله الطيبين الطاهرين وعن صحابته الغر الميامين وعن التابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وعنا معهم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات اللهم فرج هموم المهمومين ونفس كروب المكروبين وارفع الغم عن المغمومين وارفع الظلم عن المظلومين واحقن دماءنا ودماء المسلمين اللهم انصر إخواننا المرابطين في المسجد الأقصى ورده إلينا في العاجل القريب يا رب العالمين وردنا أجمعين إليك وإلى دينك ردا جميلا وتب علينا من جميع ذنوبنا توبة نصوحا طهرنا بها قلبا وجسدا وروحا وما ذلك عليك اللهم بعزيز ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون أقم الصلاة
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
أبدا لا إله إلا الله استووا اعتدلوا استقيموا لا تختلفوا حالوا بين المناكب سدوا الخلل لا تدعوا فرجا بينكم سووا الصف تثبيت الصف من إقام الصلاة أتموا الأول فالأول لينوا بأيدي إخوانكم shoulder to shoulder ankle to ankle put your toes on the front part of the dark gray line close in the gap straighten your lines silence your phones استووا يرحمكم الله الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. الله يبسط الرزق لمن يشاء ويقدر وفرحوا بالحياة الدنيا وما الحياة الدنيا في الآخرة إلا متاع. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. فلا تهنوا وتدعوا إلى السلم وأنتم الأعلون والله معكم ولن يتركم أعمالكم. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Stop. Stop.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh Adnan, for